pathology of the coronary artery disease is concerned, there is a focal intimal accumulation of the lipids and blood elements which lead to the fibrous tissue formation and the calcium deposition. It will lead to the formation of the plaque, and that plaque will lead to stenosis of the vessel. It is every plaque and every stenosis has a fate. Either the plaque will regress and will lead to collateral formation, or the plaque will rupture and will lead to thrombosis. It usually affects the multiple coronary arteries simultaneously, which can be blocked at proximal or at mid or at bifurcations. So here is the picture representing and showing the pathophysiology of the vessel stenosis. Initially, there is the endothelial injury in which it attracts the platelets, lipoprotein, and monocytes towards the vessel wall. After that, there is another phase which is called the proliferative phase. In this phase, the platelet-derived growth factor and endothelial-derived growth factor will release, and it will lead to the productive phase, which is classified as the formation of atherosclerotic plaque. Here is the picture in which you can see there is a thrombosis in the vessel wall. This is the basically autopsy picture in which there is a left anterior descending artery, and in the middle of that artery there is a thrombosis, and there is a small hole in the artery, and that hole is basically a septal branch of the left anterior descending artery. Here is another picture showing the big thrombosis of the left anterior descending coronary artery. This is a full picture of the anterior wall of the heart, in which you can see the proximal and the mid portion of the left anterior descending artery is involved with thrombosis, and that blockage will lead to the apical and anterior wall myocardial infarction. So what is myocardial infarction? Is basically because of imbalance between the oxygen supply and the demand of the myocardium. And that infarction is basically a myocardial necrosis, which starts after 20 minutes of the myocardial ischemia. It starts at the border zone, and the reperfusion within 3 to 4 hours can limit the extent of myocardial necrosis. If it is not limited by a reperfusion, then it will lead to scarring of the myocardium. And that scarring will lead to left ventricle systolic and diastolic dysfunction, and finally it will lead to chronic heart failure. So in this picture, you can see there's a white streak within the myocardial tissue, and that streak is basically representing the necrosis of the myocardium. Here you can see the whole of the anterior wall of the heart is scarred because of the myocardial infarction. So how we diagnose the patient having a coronary artery disease? First of all, the most important is the history, in which we check the symptoms of the myocardial infarction or ischemia. So the most common symptom is the angina pectoris, or the acute myocardial infarction, chronic heart failure, sudden death, incidental finding on ECG. They are the following finding on the history, but the most common characteristic feature is the angina pectoris. Then we move towards the non-invasive test to identify and quantify the coronary artery disease. First of all, we take the ECG of the patient, then we do X-ray, labs, which include the cardiac markers, include the troponin levels and CKMB levels, exercise testing, nuclear scans, and echocardiography. Now, in the recent time, we also do CT scan for the calcium scoring. For diagnosis, we also have to look see for the associated conditions like atherosclerosis of the peripheral arteries, any carotid bruit in the neck. And for the definitive diagnosis, we will do the diagnostic imaging test. And for that test, we do the coronary angiography. Coronary angiography is basically the gold standard to diagnose the coronary artery disease. Other modalities which we can use is CT or MR angiography. So for the coronary angiography, we have a grading system to classify the severity of the stenosis. So if the stenosis is less than 50%, we classify the stenosis as mild stenosis. If the stenosis is more than 50% of the vessel diameter, which involves 75% cross-sectional area loss, we classify it as moderate. And in severe cases, there is a loss of 70% of the vessel diameter, and which is equal to 90% cross-sectional area loss of a vessel. Distribution involves either there is a single vessel disease, that is a single system, two system means two vessel disease, and three system means the triple vessel disease or a three vessel disease. It can also involve left main coronary artery. So in this picture, as I told you, there is a classification according to the vessel diameter loss and the cross-sectional area loss, and is classified as mild, moderate, and severe. So before going to the angiographic views, let's have a brief review about the coronary anatomy. So basically, we have two coronary arteries. One is the left coronary artery and other one is the right coronary artery. Left coronary artery arises from the left aortic sinus and right coronary artery arises from the right coronary sinus. And further, the left coronary artery, here you can see on the right side picture, is divided into two branches. One is the left anterior descending artery and other one is the left circumflex coronary artery. On the right side, the right coronary artery divides into posterior descending artery, which you will see later. So the anterior descending artery mostly supplies the anterior wall of the heart, that is the left ventricle, and the anterior part of the interventricular septum, while the circumflex coronary artery supplies the lateral wall of the heart. In this picture, you can see the right coronary artery and its branches, and this right coronary artery supplies the right ventricle and posterior 1/3 of the interventricular septum through posterior descending artery. This is basically the left coronary artery system, and this is the diagrammatic illustration of the picture, which you will see as same in the angiographic views. So here you can see the left main coronary artery divides into the left anterior descending artery and left circumflex coronary artery. Left anterior descending artery further divides and gives branches which are named as diagonal branches and septal branches. On the other hand, left circumflex coronary artery gives branches which are named as obtuse marginal artery. This is again the illustration and the angiographic view of the diagram, in which you can see the right coronary artery, which give branches such as sinoatrial nodal branches, acute marginal arteries, and posterior descending arteries. So this is the posterior view of the heart, in which you can see the posterior descending artery. So depending on the posterior descending artery, we classify the system as a right dominant or the left dominant, which you will see in the angiographic views. So here you can see the right coronary artery give branch, which is called as posterior descending artery, and that posterior descending artery goes behind the heart and provide the interventricular septum and posterior wall of the heart. So here, this is the same picture as you have seen before. This is on the left side is the coronary angiography. There is a left injection and showing that left injection showing the left coronary system. Here the left main coronary artery is divided into left anterior descending artery and left circumflex coronary artery. You can also see in between these two arteries, there is another artery which is called as ramus intermedius in the center. In between these two arteries, this is called the ramus intermedius artery, which is present in 30% of population. So here's the left main system. Now there is the pathology. As I have told you before, there is a stenosis of the coronary artery. Here you can see the stenosis of the left main coronary artery. So the left main coronary artery is blocked more than 90%. In this picture, you can see the proximal portion of the right coronary artery is blocked. So this is basically a right injection in which you can see the right coronary artery. This right coronary artery is a C-shaped artery and it divides into posterior descending artery, and the upper one is the PLV branch, posterior left ventricular branch. So there is a stenosis or the blockage of the proximal portion of the right coronary artery. So for that blockage, we have three different options. One is the medical management. Medical management is basically for mild diseases, that is in which the stenosis or the blockage is less than 50%. But if in cases of the moderate diseases and severe diseases where the blockage is more than 50% or 70%, we have two different options. One is the PCI and other one is the CABG. In the PCI is basically percutaneous coronary artery intervention, and CABG is coronary artery bypass graft. What we do in the PCI, basically, we pass a wire across the blockage or across the stenosis, and over that wire is a stand or a balloon. When we inflate the balloon, it compresses the stenosis and opens the vessel. And in cases of the surgery, when we do surgery, it is very important. Basically, we all follow American Heart Association guidelines, which classify the indication for surgery. So generally, indications are if the left main system or left main coronary artery is blocked, then we will go for surgery. Or in cases of left main equivalent. What is left main equivalent? If we see the blockage of left anterior descending artery and left circumflex coronary artery at their proximal portion, that is the bifurcation of left main coronary artery, when it divides into LAD and circumflex coronary artery. So the blockage of LAD and proximal circumflex coronary artery is classified as left main equivalent. Always remember the stenosis of proximal LAD and stenosis of proximal circumflex coronary artery is classified as left main equivalent. In other cases, if there are triple vessel disease or two vessel disease with the involvement of left anterior descending artery, we will go for surgery. And in these cases, if the ejection fraction is less than 50% on echo, then we will go for surgery. In cases of single vessel disease or two vessel disease, if the large area of viable myocardium is at risk of ischemia, then we will go for surgery. Here you can see the survival curves. In those patients which involve only single vessel, the survival benefit or survival chances are more. But in those patients who have either two vessel disease or three vessel disease, then the survival curve is basically going down and the chances of survival is less. So how we do coronary artery bypass grafting or cardiac surgery? Basically, we have different options. One is the full sternotomy approach, that is we open or we cut the sternum and open the chest. And after opening the chest, we put the patient on heart-lung machine. That is a cardiopulmonary bypass. Other approach is again the same. We open the chest in the same manner through the sternotomy approach, that is by cutting the sternum, but without using any heart-lung machine. That is OPCAB. OPCAB is basically off-pump coronary artery bypass grafting, in which we do not use heart-lung machine and we do surgery on a beating heart. Other approaches involve the minimal invasive coronary artery bypass surgery. In minimal invasive surgeries, we do not open chest from the sternum, but we go in other way by opening from the thoracic cavity or through the ribs. This is also called as mid-cap, that is minimally invasive direct coronary artery bypass. So for bypass grafting, the CABG is the gold standard and is still most widely used in the world. The objective of CABG is complete revascularization by bypassing all the severe stenosis in all affected coronary arteries. We mostly graft the coronary arteries if the diameter of the coronary artery is more than 1 meter. Most widely used graft or conduit involves LIMA, that is left internal mammary artery, RIMA, that is right internal mammary artery, SVG, that is saphenous vein graft, radial artery, or gastroepiploic artery. In this picture, you can see the LIMA. LIMA is the most widely used arterial graft or arterial conduit in the cardiac surgery. This is the gold standard to intervene or graft the stenosis of the left anterior descending artery. We can take the lima either as pedicle graft or as non-pedicle graft. In pedicle graft, here you can see the picture on the left side, the left internal thoracic artery or internal memory artery is basically arising from the first part of the subclavian artery. So in pedicle graft, its one end is remain attached to the subclavian artery, while other end, we free that end, we cut that end, and then we put that end over the left anterior descending artery. So it's one end is free and one end remains attached to the parent vessel. In non-pedicle graft or free graft, we take out the lima and cut the both ends, that is the upper end and lower end, and we put the lima on the heart as a free graft. One end is attached to the aorta and other end is anastomosed to the left anterior descending artery. Skeletonized lima means lima without any tissue, and non-skeletonized lima means lima with some thoracic fascia or some thoracic tissue along with it. In this picture, you can see the surgeon is harvesting the left internal thoracic artery or left internal memory artery from the chest wall. Here you can see bilateral internal thoracic arteries, that is the lima and bema or rima, that is right internal thoracic artery and left internal thoracic artery. But in such patient, mostly in diabetic patient, there will be a sternal wound problem if we harvest both the arteries, because both arteries supplying the sternum. Other conduit is basically venous conduit. It is most widely used in cardiac surgery. This is Safnat vein graft, in which we harvest starting from the front of the medial malleolus and goes up towards the knee and then towards the thigh. Other arterial graft is radial artery graft. So to put a radial artery on a coronary artery, the coronary lesion must be more than 70% stenosis. In this picture, you can basically, this is an operative picture in which the surgeon is harvesting the radial artery from forearm. Other grafts include the gastroepiploic arteries, in which we harvest the gastroepiploic artery from the greater curvature of the stomach and we take it across the diaphragm towards the right coronary artery. But this artery is very rarely used in current practice. Here you can see the gastroepiploic arteries, it's anastomosed to the right coronary artery across the diaphragm. Here is the picture after bypass grafting. You can see multiple grafts on the right side from the above. There is a left internal internal thoracic artery or internal memory artery, which is used as a pedicle graft. Its one end is attached to the first part of the subclavian artery and other end is anastomosed to the left anterior descending artery. Other graft is a Y graft on the right side. This is the right internal thoracic artery, which has been taken as a free graft, and this is anastomosed to the obtuse marginal branch of the circumflex coronary artery. On the left side down, you can see the gastroepiploic arteries has been harvested from the greater curvature of the stomach and has been taken across the diaphragm and anastomosed to the right coronary artery. So this type of grafting is called as total arterial grafting. All the graft are arterial graft. No saphenous vein graft is used in this case. So such type of grafting is called as total arterial graft, which we use in the young patient. So this is a diagrammatic illustration in the picture in which you can see before surgery and after surgery. After surgery, you can see the lemma has been grafted to the internal thoracic artery, and the saphenous vein graft has been grafted to the posterior descending branch of the right coronary artery. This is a routine practice in which we take out the venous conduits as well as the arterial conduits. So how to do a CABG? So we can do CABG as I told you before. We can do CABG as either on pump by using a heart lung machine, which is called as cardiopulmonary bypass. With the help of cardioplegia, we arrest the heart. In case of off pump case, we do not arrest the heart and we do surgery on a beating heart without the use of heart lung machine. So always remember the definition of open heart surgery. In the heart surgery in which we use heart lung machine is called open heart surgery, and those surgeries in which we do not use heart lung machine are classified as closed heart surgery. So there is a little procedure of the coronary artery bypass grafting. We open the chest with the median sternotomy, then we harvest the graft. After that, we cannulate the heart and put the patient on cardiopulmonary bypass. And then we clamp the aorta, give the cardioplegia solution to arrest the heart. When after that, we do grafting, we rewarm the patient, we cool the patient during grafting because we create a hypothermia. Why we create hypothermia? In order to decrease the metabolic requirement of the myocardium. So we decline the temperature of the body. We create the hypothermia, which is called as systemic hypothermia. With the help of this hypothermia, we decrease the metabolic requirement of the myocardium and the oxygen demand of the myocardium and avoid the ischemia. After grafting, we rewarm the patient, turn off the cardiopulmonary bypass, and close the chest. In beating heart surgery, we do not create any hypothermia. We maintain a normothermia. We open the chest, do the same procedure like the conduit harvesting, graft harvesting, and do grafting on a beating heart and close the chest in a routine manner. In this picture, you can see the surgeon is doing median sternotomy. Median sternotomy is a routine procedure in which we cut the sternum through the sternal saw. We open the chest with the help of the sternal spreader. In this picture is the operative picture in which you can see the surgeon is basically has a sternal saw in his hand and he is going to cut the sternum. So after sternotomy or after opening the chest, Surgeon basically we apply the sternal spreader to open the chest. Then we open the pericardium and to expose the heart. So how we do cardiopulmonary bypass? What is the mechanism behind it? Cardiopulmonary bypass is basically this diagrammatic illustration, or the picture is basically the most important picture in which you can see how it works. So how it works, basically, what we do, we put a cannula either on a right atrium or into the superior vena cava or inferior vena cava to drain all the deoxygenated blood from the body. After draining that deoxygenated blood from the body into the cannula, that blood passes into the blue box, which is called as venous reservoir. From that reservoir, the blood passes into the oxygenator. Into the oxygenator, it gets oxygenated, and after oxygenation, there is a circular pump, which is called the arterial pump, which pump the oxygenated blood through the aortic cannula into the aorta. And from the aorta, it supplies to all over the body. Here is the bypass setup of the heart-lung machine. You can see the heart-lung machine. This is a Mackay heart-lung machine. In this machine, we have in Dow setup. This is another machine is a smart technology or most advanced type of technology which we have in our Dow Institute of Cardiology Operation Theater. This is called the ECMO machine. ECMO machine is basically a very small heart and lung machine in which we can put a patient on cardiopulmonary bypass for 30 days without a heart or with a failed heart. This machine is basically used as a bridge to heart transplantation. This is the another picture in which there's showing the minimal invasive type of the robotic cardiac surgery. Is another advanced technique in which a surgeon sits in a console which is placed 10 feet away from the patient. Surgeon sit in a console and gear up in the console, and what he does basically, he operates in the console, and the robot on the right side of the picture is basically operating the patient. So what are the result of the coronary artery bypass grafting? It is basically has a very good result in a patient with the ejection fraction more than 50%. So the time related survival benefit in a patient over a month is more than 98%. For 1 year is 97, 5 years 92%, 10 years 81, and 15 years 66%. Any other advantages of the coronary artery bypass grafting include the freedom from angina more than 60% at 10 years, freedom from anterior wall MI is 86% at 10 years, freedom from sudden death working 1 year in a postoperative period. Graft showed that Lima to LAD has more than 90% patency at 10 years and 20 years. Radial artery showed 80% patency at 7 years, and gastroepiploic artery, which we rarely use, showed that there is a 60% patency rate at 10 years. On the other hand, the venous graft, that is the saphenous vein graft, the most widely used vein graft, showed 50 to 60% patency rate at 10 years. Thank you.